Hello guys, this is PushDustIn with Source Gaming, and joining me today is CM30. He's the owner and founder of Gaming Reinvented. So today we'll be talking about what makes a source reliable. Now this is a pretty complicated topic, and there's a lot of buzz about fake news and misinformation within the news. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about it with CM30, as he has done incredible work with talking about ethics and gaming journalism. So, in your mind, what makes a source reliable?
Oh, when people kind of trust the source. I mean, look at CM30.net. It's a really reliable Pokemon site because people trusted it over time because it kept doing good work. People kept thinking it did post reliable information. Basically, at one point, the official Nintendo magazine actually used CM30.net as their source. That got to the point that Nintendo themselves considered it reliable, so hence it's reliable.
Yeah, so it's basically just having an extensive history then?
Yeah, pretty much. Got an extensive history, then people will trust you more.
What could Cerebi do to ruin that credibility, for example?
They could keep posting fake information. I mean, a couple of times doing that, and they'd probably lose most of the credibility overnight.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if Source Gaming suddenly started lying, then you'd probably lose your own credibility pretty quickly, to be honest.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think if we were posting rumors every week and doing a lot of fake posts like we've heard blah blah blah, but if we didn't actually hear something like that, then I think a lot of people would really question us.
Yeah, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I've been reading Wikipedia's articles on what counts a reliable source, and I don't really consider their guidelines very accurate, to be honest. I consider them a bit more focused on the academics of people running the site more than their actual credibility as a news source. They seem more interested in whether they've got a journalism degree than whether they've actually done good work in the past.
I think one of the issues is that kind of how people have access to news is changed a lot in the last couple of years. And you could argue that Wikipedia has just fallen behind.
Yeah, it's going by the rules set out by newspapers rather than online magazines and websites. I mean, in a newspaper, yeah, I guess the New York Times would be more accurate than, say, some guy's blog. But nowadays, that guy might be an expert in the topic who's been working on it for like 20 years. Has probably got more experience at than anyone else in the market.
Yeah, exactly. And like with internet, you have so many people who are experts in certain subjects. You have really specialized people, and so they are like the credible source behind information for that area. They are the experts. They are the masters, and they might not work for a major publication.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's this guy on YouTube that does nothing but Super Mario 64 glitches and speed runs, but everyone's considering that the most reliable source in the market. But yeah, it's just some guy just put loads of effort in, done loads of research, and kind of worked out for himself. Same with Strider 7X and Paper Mario. He spent his whole life just documenting glitches in Paper Mario and proving how the game works on a technical level. Those are probably two of the most reliable sources on the whole internet for their two topics. Yet a site like Wikipedia just wouldn't trust them because they're just not backed by major publication.
So do you think that Wikipedia just needs to adapt to the new medium then?
Yeah, it needs to base its sources more on whether say it's accurate or reliable in the past more than whether it's just got some kind of degree behind it. I mean, you can have a journalism degree and write complete crap, to be honest, but Wikipedia will just assume that because you've got the degree, you automatically know what's a good source, how to write, and what's good information to go on, whatever. They just assume that someone who's gone to university is officially more important than someone who's actually run a website for 10 years.
So how can Wikipedia actually vet these sources then?
Well, go online and look at how many other people are using them as a reliable source. I mean, for a fake news site, most other reliable sites won't really use them unless they've been, fooled. But for a reliable site, you'll have all these big publications linked to them. You'll have all these people on forums using them, all these people on wikis using them.
So basically, Wikipedia would have to do research not only on the subject, but also who's saying it.
Yeah, kind of like SEO, to be honest, you've heard how that works. Like with backlinks and page rank and whatever. More credible source, and you get higher links in Google, etc.
Yeah, I think one of the issues is that the reliability of a source can really change over time. Other people can be involved. They can kind of tamper with the image of a site or a publication. But I think that's the same with any newspaper, as you mentioned before as well.
I think another example you've forgotten is probably like, if you've seen Forbes and the Huffington Post, they used to be sites where you'd have to be a journalist to write for them, you'd have to work for the site, but now you can just be any old blog and you'll get a blog to write whatever you like on their domain. So now stuff on Forbes is not really that accurate anymore. It's just any old thing people post is now getting accepted and put on the site. So it's kind of changed from like a newspaper to something more like WordPress. People can basically say anything there now.
Yeah, and I think tracking that is very difficult for Wikipedia.
Yeah, it is hard to track whether someone's changed reliability in the past. If your site opened up guest posts to anyone, then there would automatically be a bunch of people who think, is Source Gaming vetting these guys? And they probably think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I mean, we do have guest posting, but it's a pretty lengthy process.
Yeah, it's not like on, I don't know, Medium where you just write a new post anytime you like and it appears immediately.
Yeah, exactly. So is there any solution to this issue besides people just spending more time researching?
I wouldn't say there is a solution, because any solution I've seen would kind of damage journalism as a field. I mean, I've seen people say, how do we determine who's a journalist, who's a blogger? But then I don't think anyone wants to make that decision. Nobody wants to be the one who says, okay, this is who's reliable and who isn't, because that just means a huge amount of conflict of interest. It means a possibility for a politician to pretty much decide that those that don't like a blogger and those that do like a journalist. I mean, you've seen it with Trump and CNN. I don't think it's too unexpected to think they'd love to do that for other sites as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's been attempts to try to make it like you'd have to pass the exam, you have to have a degree or do whatever, but then it's like, a lot of the best journalism comes from people outside the system, not those who worked in it for a while. And I don't really want to make it so journalism's like law or medicine, where you've got to have like 10 years experience and especially university education to do anything.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what is journalism? And journalism, you can say, is like just reporting on a situation, looking at what has happened and creating a written record or some sort of record of it. And I think the barrier for entry for a lot of journalism is low. I think anyone could really become a journalist if they wanted to.
Yeah, that's like the case of SEO and web development and programming or whatever else as well. They're all markets where there's no barrier to entry, so it is going to be by definition harder to decide who's accurate and who isn't. But that's always going to be a problem in these fields, because there is no way to decide. There is no absolute way to say this person's a good, example of their field.
Trying to think outside the box a little bit. Like I know with New York taxi drivers, for example, there's a strong union. And if you're not in the union, you're not a taxi driver. They recently changed that law, I think, to allow companies like Uber and Lyft to compete. But before that law, it was very difficult to become a taxi driver without joining that union.
And are you thinking a union for journalists?
I don't think it would work really, because as you saw with New York, that union is becoming weaker and weaker because of Uber and Lyft.
Yeah, that's the problem. Any kind of union, any kind of setup, any kind of movement, you can't, unless it's somehow legally enforceable, you can't really stop anyone from outside the system just making it irrelevant.
So yeah, there's not really an easy solution to understand what makes a source reliable, I think. Like you mentioned, like looking into the history and seeing what other people have said, and seeing if it was cited from other reputable sources. I think that does help, but it doesn't really help, I don't think it really helps common people.
No, because the average Joe don't have the time to go through every source and look at their history and how accurate they are in the past. The average Joe they've got like 10 minutes between tea and, I don't know, when they start work again, they want to post up Facebook. They can't just go through Google for an hour.
Yeah, and I'm pretty worried, like you, about any solution which would censor any type of website or medium. Because I think once you get into censorship, you get into a lot of issues.
Yeah, there is one question I'm wondering, what do you think the solution is to fake news? Because I've seen that brought up a lot recently.
Yeah, fake news is something that's very difficult to combat. Because I know companies like Facebook and Google, they have threatened to pull out ad revenue, or not allow those stories to be featured in their searches or on their feed in case of Facebook. And I think that's a little dangerous.
It's dangerous because anyone who's outside the system, I feel, could be accidentally punished or targeted by this. I mean, if you're posting a story that the mainstream media hasn't got around to covering yet, then it can easily come as if it's fake because nobody's really talking about it. And it can also happen that if there's a media scandal, I mean, then there's going to be a huge problem with this kind of system, because a certain amount of media are against the story getting out.
Or like, for example, if there's a publication that was against Facebook or against Google, and they had some serious allegations that the public does need to know about, Facebook and Google could say that these are fake news. Don't worry about it. is just very worrying. It's very difficult to combat fake news and the amount of misinformation. It's a lot easier to trick someone and tell them false information than to tell them that the information that they know is wrong. I have several years experience with that in the Smash fan base. It took me a long time for people to finally accept that a lot of the old truths were actually false, even after I had submitted several pieces of evidence that showed that there's nothing to back up those claims.
You're talking about stuff like Meowth in Smash Bros. 1, aren't you?
Yeah, that was all made up by a user on YoGaf, who I later tracked down, and he admitted to me that he lied about that. But all that information was accepted as truth, and no one really asked for the sources back then.
Yeah, I know that from the Mario fan base. There was this rumour about this ghost in Luigi's Mansion that was in the beta version, and people just thought, well, they thought it was reliable because it came from some magazine that was published after the game had long since finished development, and then somehow through folklore it ended up on all these beta pages, and people then basically started believing it, putting in articles, putting in videos, and then only years later did people go back and think, hang on, this don't make sense, there's no evidence this exists, there's no way anyone can figure out this exists, yet somehow we're talking about it even though there's no evidence. It's like, it's a mess basically because of that.
Yeah, and once a lot of people start referencing the false information, then it becomes even harder to really erase it from the public mind.
Especially a problem with wikis, because one wiki, you add such a wiki, and a publication then talks about the ask thing from the wiki, and then they use the publication to link back to the wiki. I think another problem is that there's a lot of source sites out there that don't really check their sources. I mean, I've seen a lot of big newspapers, for example, go on the word of a gossip blog, which then goes on the word of another gossip blog, which then goes on the word of a fake news site at the end, and then has accidentally posted that they don't actually exist as a result. For example, there's this rumour about Harry Potter version of Pokemon Go, and the Metros wrote about it, but the Metro's original source was a fake news site which was supposedly posing satire. So now you've got a major newspaper in the UK which is sending out physical copies to people, which is now bought into a lie by a site that purely exists for ad clicks. And that's kind of a problem in this field, because said fake news site source doesn't exist. They link to a non-existent page on IGN which actually goes to an error page, but nobody bothered to check that the actual page exists when they're writing out themselves.
Yeah, and that's a huge issue because they're not checking their own sources, they're not vetting the information, they're just putting anything out there, really.
I think social media's can make it a bit more of an issue because for now, people want stuff out quick. They don't care if it's accurate, they just want it quick. And it's got this huge incentive for people just not to check, get as much done as possible, screw any real standards, just get as many clicks as possible. And that's basically just completely destroyed a lot of people's credibility.
I know in my own experience, if I do have something wrong and I run a correction, that correction will not be spread as much as the original article. So there's a great burden, there's a great pressure to really get the story correct the first time. But at the same time, there's also a great pressure to be the first one.
Yeah, because news is a very short lifespan on today's internet. News is like, I'd say about 2 days worth of lifespan, unless it's a massive event.
And so there's no way to really slow that down either.
Now, people don't really want to wait for news. I mean, nobody's out. That's why newspapers are fading now, because nobody wants to wait and go out and go to shop and buy one when they just get online. So people actually try and do their research are just being left behind by people who just put out anything.
Yeah. Do you think that there'll be kind of like a renaissance of that kind of journalism?
To be honest, I don't think the answer is yes, because there's a problem, that's people don't really want to pay for news anymore, yet good work requires you to pay the journalists to actually write about it. So I worry that with ad block and stuff in the future, we'll get to a situation where the only people who write are people who don't really rely on it for a living. That's going to be kind of a problem as it comes, because nobody's paying for subscriptions, few people are paying for microtransactions, a lot of people blocking ads, so how are they making their money back? Yeah.
And also on top of that, you see more and more sites move into YouTube and other types of non-written work. Even with Source Gaming, we're doing more and more videos because our videos just get way more views than our written articles.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that. I mean, that's why I'm trying to set up videos myself, but it's kind of hard to think what to talk about. I mean, it's like you've got so much competition on YouTube. It's like, how do you know what's original and what isn't? How do you know what we got to do is get it actually be taken well.
Yeah, and the thing with the videos is that it's a lot harder to do corrections or to update them.
I actually saw some try correction. Top Hat Gaming Man made a mistake for a Mario Kart game in a video, so he deleted the video, remade the video with information to correct it, and then upload it again. But very few people are going to actually go through and do that because it's a lot more work, a lot more effort for that few people check. So they just leave it.
Yeah, there's several YouTube channels that do a lot of like trivia and stuff like that, and they just have incorrect information in their videos. They don't bother to go back or re-annotate or update the title or update the description.
It reminds me of the Rate Gamer as well, because that's the kind of person who seems to be kind of ruining these services because they're just posting out anything. They don't care if it's accurate. They just their ideas are just like they don't know what they're talking about. And it's just, and a lot of people are just watching it and just think, okay, fair enough, he must be accurate. He's got a YouTube channel, he's got a bunch of games. Fair enough, done.
Yeah, there comes to a point where people who have big channels or large number of subscriptions, they're just other people assume that they're going to be correct.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So it's very difficult to try to challenge some of those conventions.
I mean, I'll give credit though. I mean, I've seen a few people on Twitter who have actually gone back and at least amended the description once I told them they got something wrong. So they're not all completely bad. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who do listen to their critics, who do listen to people's feedback. I mean, they do actually, if I tell them they got something wrong, they will actually go back and correct it. So they're not completely messing stuff up.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Top Hat Gaming re-uploaded that video, which is really admirable. Yeah, I don't think there's a really easy solution to this problem. I think the only solution is really to educate and tell people about it.
Yeah, the only solution, that is the solution, or I worry that's kind of a failing solution. Because I mean, we've had problems educating people for like last, say, I don't know, 100 years. It's like, how do we get people to actually take it seriously rather than think that I can just put my brain on autopilot and accept anything that's coming?
I think one thing is people need to be responsible also for the content that they consume. This is something that I've argued with clickbait in the past. I think it's about 60% of the audience fault and 40% of the producer's fault. And that's because the audience members will continually click on clickbait, and so it rewards that kind of bad behavior. Now, of course, that bad behavior shouldn't exist in the first place. It's incentivized, really.
No, there is some good news though in that front. I mean, AdBlock will at least hopefully kill off a lot of the clickbait sites. I mean, if they can't make ad revenue from it, nobody's going to pay for these sites. Nobody's going to really subscribe to them, so they shouldn't really be a huge issue when AdBlock reaches like 90% of the audience.
Yeah.
But that's probably not a good thing for anyone else either, so I can't really say much.
Yeah, AdBlock's not, like you mentioned before, it's not going to be good for the journalists, the people who rely on income.
Yeah, talking about income, have you noticed that there's a lot of game journalists complaining about the amount of money they're making from this field? It feels like it's a field that there isn't really a lot of money in by default. It's like, I feel that's kind of its problem. Journalism now is so low paid that nobody actually doesn't have some deep passion for it, actually wants to go in and do it. Or anyone who's got any other interests, go where the money is, like, I don't know, development or running a startup or going to banking or whatever.
Yeah, I've actually talked to a couple of professional video game journalists, and they've said don't go into video game journalism because there's no money there. A lot of them, they actually supplement their incomes by writing for other publications on the side.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. I've seen that the same people might own a site and then write for a bunch of others, then run a YouTube channel, then have a Patreon on the side of that, and then maybe then some donations as well. That's how much I've got to go to just to make ends meet on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's difficult because I don't think people really want to pay for video game journalism.
To be fair, they don't want to pay for journalism in general. I don't think that's the.
But video game journalism is a little bit different than normal journalism because it's so intertwined with the industry itself. And
it's also so risk-free and easy to get into. I mean, normal journalism, you could potentially be shot, you could become hostage, you could be sent to prison, you could have your office raided. There's all kind of bad things that happen to people writing about politics or current events or wars or whatever. But in game journalism, anyone on the computer can basically do what these people are doing for Polygon or Kotaku. It's like there's no barrier to entry to get into this. So absolutely everyone does, and the prices obviously just fell through the floor as a result.
I know that has happened in Japan. They're easing the restrictions on English teachers. And so because of that, a lot of the wages have gone down dramatically.
Yeah, it's like it's supply and demand. The demand for journalism at the moment is far lower than the supplies. That's the problem.
So I guess before we wrap this up, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Well, I think it'd be nice if people supported less well-known sites and YouTubers a bit more, because I've seen a lot of better information come from these sites and channels than from the bigger ones, and I feel like if more people actually gave them their time and money and whatever, people might actually be incentivized to do their job well. I mean, look, I'm following people like Slopes Gaming, Top Hat Gaming Man, your Source Gaming site, etc. And by doing that, I'm following people I think who actually got a real passion for doing things the right way, rather than the person who just wants it for the ad clicks and who just wants to, I don't know, make millions off from doing nothing.
Yeah, I would say probably the most important thing that anyone could do is no matter how big of an audience you have personally, sharing content really makes a difference. Like when people share our articles or videos to Reddit or even to their own Twitter, it helps a lot. That could be 5 or 10 more people that would visit the article that might not have seen it.
Yeah, you've got to try and support the people who don't have the audience yet, who don't have huge amounts of popularity, because the more people visit their stuff, the more incentive they have to work on it, the more rewarding for their work, the more it works out for them in the end. Whereas at the moment, people, if you're not sharing them, nobody really knows about these sites or channels. Nobody knows.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the bigger content creators, they're so focused on their own channel and audience that they're not willing to share really a lot of other people or introduce their audience to other people, because they're almost afraid that the audience will leave them.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a lot, although again, I've seen a few good examples there. I mean, A Start Show has shared, I think, Boundary Break as a channel, and Aurum has put Boundary Break as a recommended channel on their one, and I think Slopes Game Room has put a bunch of recommended channels for their channel as well. So you have seen some bigger channels actually support the smaller ones, but it seems kind of sadly rather rare, as you said. It was like only the somewhat moderately sized channels are the ones actually supporting out the less known ones, whereas the really massive ones, the PewDiePies and the world, seem like they just kind of just ignoring everyone who they follow. They're just kind of ignoring people who should be recommended.
Yeah, and I can kind of understand you kind of want to keep your audience engaged with your product or whatever, but at the same time, it's not really creating like a collaborative environment.
It's like really ultra competitive, where anyone who's got cess on money is just holding it, just trying, hopefully, find no one else knows their competition exists.
So, on that note, please share this video.
Share it on Reddit, share it on Twitter, share it on posts.
Yeah, and please check out Game and Reinvented. You guys also post daily, I think, right?
Well, yeah, mostly daily. Although at the moment, I'm trying to get people to actually subscribe with actual paid sign-ups, which is kind of difficult. So the more people do that, the better. Yeah, definitely, because
like we talked about, actually supporting the artists, actually supporting the people, does make a difference.
Yeah, because try and disable ad block when you go to these sites. Like if you're going to Source Gaming, just try and disable ad block at least for that place.
We don't actually run ads.
Yeah, we'll do it on my one as well. We'll just make sure any sites
Yeah, if you want to support a site, whitelist it. Share. If you can't donate money, then just share the page, share the video. It's completely free for you to share. So, where can people find you?
Okay, http:// I forget, just www.gamereinvented.com, because nobody reads the first bit of the URL.
Well, the link to Game and Reinvented will be in the description below. I'm PushDustIn. You can follow me on Twitter at PushDustIn, and you can check out sourcegaming.info for more information. Stay subscribed to this channel for more discussion videos. We do lots of things, so stay tuned. The audio used in this video is from Ben Briggs. Be sure to check out his website on twitchjams.com for more information.